Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. A quorum being present, the meeting will come to order.
That was in case you had to sneak out. Yeah, that was.
At this time, I would ask that everyone make their way to a seat so that we can begin the meeting. I will note to folks that are listening in the gymnasium that there are plenty of seats still available in the auditorium if they care to participate from the auditorium. I do have Mary Osgood, a deputy moderator, attending to the gymnasium. I'm just going to check to make sure that she is able to hear us and see us as well.
I can't hear it.
I can't hear a word.
Yeah.
Are you able to hear us?
That's not as strong, so everything else is. He and I were emailing about some stuff, Robert's rules kind of stuff. I hope none of this comes up.
Mary, are you able to hear us?
He is well today. Yeah, he's a smart guy.
I'm asking if you could hear my just initial introduction on the gymnasium.
No, they haven't described it.
No, I didn't.
I walked up.
That's what I did. I just walked.
All right, folks, we're going to try this again. Can you hear me better?
Yes.
All right, I have a lively audience. I love to hear it. Good morning again, ladies and gentlemen. A quorum being present, the meeting will come to order. All right, again, we do have an overflow room in the gymnasium. There are still seats available in the auditorium if people that are currently in the gymnasium want to make their way to the auditorium, but they could participate from the gymnasium if they care to. I would ask that you rise if you are able to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States. Thank you very much. A few announcements before we get started. Again, the gymnasium is open and available for individuals who wish to participate in the meeting from that location. The gymnasium is located by taking a right after leaving the auditorium. Mary Osgood has been sworn as the deputy moderator to attend to the gymnasium, which is equipped with a projection screen for simultaneous broadcasting of the proceedings in the auditorium. Individuals are not permitted to bring food or drink into the auditorium or gymnasium, but the Wilmington Public Schools Choral and Theater Support Group, CATS, will be selling refreshments in the cafeteria. Additionally, for individuals who signed up in advance, there are student volunteers from the high school providing childcare during the course of this meeting. Drop-off for childcare for those who signed up in advance is by the library located by the Church Street entrance of the building. That is the opposite end of the building from the location we are currently in. I do want to express my gratitude for the student volunteers for volunteering to sacrifice their Saturday morning to make it possible for many of you to attend, as it helps enable more residents to participate in our democratic process. When you checked in, everyone should have had the opportunity to get the Finance Committee's recommendation letter, a letter from me regarding today's proceedings, a citizen's guide to town meeting, a copy of the warrant for special town meeting, and your orange voter card, which should be visible during all standing votes so that tellers may count them. Throughout the entrance of the auditorium, there are posters hanging up that include a QR code. A QR code is a square black and white image that looks a little bit like a barcode. If you point your smartphone camera at the QR code, a link will pop up, which will bring you to the town's website, where the warrant and other materials related to today's meeting are available. This special town meeting has 3 articles, dealing with 2 potential projects that this assembly is being asked to consider. This assembly is limited in the decisions that it may make today by the articles contained in the warrant. As such, all motions and discussions on all motions today must be within the scope of the article then under discussion. If you wish to speak on the merits of an article, I would ask that you approach the 4 microphones located in the auditorium. I will call on those whom I see first at the microphones. There are no microphones in the gymnasium, so if you are seated in the gymnasium and wish to be heard, please make your way to the auditorium to approach a microphone. For all speakers, I will ask that you please identify your name and address so that we may accurately record the minutes of today's meeting. All motions and amendments having to do with the expenditures of money must be presented to me in writing. So if you are making a motion or planning on amending a motion, that must be presented to me in writing. The maker of a main motion can have up to 10 minutes for commentary. All other speakers can have up to 5 minutes during discussion on a main motion. If you hear me tapping on the microphone, that is your cue that there are 30 seconds remaining and to begin to wind down your comments. No person may speak twice on the same question except to correct a mistake or to provide an explanation. On a motion to amend, if we have any, all speakers can have up to 5 minutes for commentary and debate is limited to 20 minutes total. So if there is a motion to amend, once debate starts, a vote on that motion to amend will occur 20 minutes later, even if there are individuals wishing to speak who have not yet had the opportunity to do so. That is pursuant to our inhabitant bylaws, Chapter 30, Section 14E. Article 1 will be taken up first. Articles 2 and 3 will be drawn randomly to determine the order in which they are considered. Non-voters should have a yellow lanyard and should be seated in the non-voter section of the gymnasium. Voters should have an orange voter card, which should be displayed for any standing votes so that the tellers can count you. Non-voters should have, again, that yellow lanyard, so if they're for any standing votes, they are not counted, and only the registered voters in Wilmington are the ones making decisions here today. Bathrooms are located outside of the auditorium to the right of the doors leading to the parking lot. If you do use the bathroom, please take your voting card with you so that we know that you have already checked in. When you do leave today's meeting, please hand your voter card into a teller that will be collecting them at the conclusion of the meeting. Tellers sitting in front, I just ask that if you see any of the individuals seated to my right or my left wish to speak, please try to wave to get my attention in case my peripheral vision fails me. If you are not sure what we are voting on, please raise your hand to make your way to a microphone to make a point of order. I do want to make sure that everyone here is aware of what we are voting on during today's proceedings. Most importantly, we will be dealing with each other respectfully, even where there may be issues on which we are disagreeing. I will not tolerate personal attacks, discussion not related to the matter at hand, and discussion raised for the sole purpose of disrupting the assembly. No member of this body will address any other member by name, and all discussion will be through the moderator. I want to thank our tellers, the Department of Public Works, the Public Buildings Department, the Department of Elderly Services, the Health Department, the Police and Fire Departments, the IT Department, the Town Manager's Office, and the School Department for making today possible. I want to especially thank the Town Clerk's Office, including Town Clerk Beth Lawrenson, Assistant Town Clerk Megan Jones, and Senior Clerk Claire Martin. There's a lot of work that goes unseen into coordinating the logistics of a town meeting, and they have done so a week and a half after election, which also required a fair amount of their effort as well. So my thanks to the Clerk's Office for their labor. I do also want to thank our friends at WCTV who are broadcasting today's meeting for the benefit of viewers watching at home and recording for future viewing. One last thing before we get started. Mr. West brought to my attention that earlier today, Adele Passmore, former member of the Historical Commission, who was instrumental in the restoration of Hardin Tavern, passed away earlier today. So I would ask for a moment of silence for Adele Passmore. Thank you. Are there any questions before we get started? Let me just check with our deputy moderator in the gymnasium. Mary, are we ready to get started in the gymnasium?
All set, ready to go.
All right. All right, here we go, folks. Greetings. In the name of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and in the manner prescribed in the bylaws of said town, you are hereby directed to notify and warn the inhabitants of the town qualified to vote in town affairs to meet and assemble at the Wilmington High School Joanne M. Benton Auditorium, 159 Church Street, in said town of Wilmington, on Saturday, the 19th day of November, A.D. 2020, at 9 a.m., then and there, to act on the following articles. Ms. O'Connell.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I move that the moderator dispense with further reading of the warrant and take up and make reference to each article by number.
Thank you, Ms. O'Connell. I'll accept that as the main motion. Do we have a second? Motion has been made and seconded. Is there discussion on dispensing of further reading of the warrant? Seeing none, this is a traditionally non-controversial procedural vote. I will just check in with our deputy moderator to see if we can do this by a voice vote. Mrs. Osgood, is the gymnasium ready for a voice vote?
Yes, we are.
All right. If you are in favor of dispensing of further reading of the warrant, please indicate by saying aye. If you are opposed, say no. Mrs. Osgood, how was the vote in the gymnasium?
No, unanimous.
All right, I will declare the result of that vote unanimous. We'll move on to Article 1. It's the first time I've used one of these since I was 8. Article 1, to hear reports of the Senior Center Building Committee and the Town Hall School Administration Building Committee and act thereon. Mr. De Palma.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I move to hear the reports from the Senior Center Building Committee and Town Hall School Administration Building Committee and to take no action thereon.
Thank you, Mr. De Palma. I'll accept that as the main motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Discussion. Ladies and gentlemen, there's a vote just to hear the reports of the Senior Center Building Committee and the Town Hall School Administration Building Committee. All right, seeing no registered voters interested in discussion, I will again check with our deputy moderator to see if we can do this by a voice vote. Mrs. Osgood, how is the gymnasium ready for a voice vote? All right, if you are in favor of Article 1 to hear the reports of the Senior Center Building Committee and the Town Hall School Administration Building Committee, please, excuse me, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Mrs. Osgood, what was the result of the vote in the gymnasium? All right, the vote was unanimous in the affirmative, so we will now hear reports from the Senior Center Building Committee first, and then the Town Hall School Administration Building, which is going to be done by George Hooper, our Superintendent of Public Buildings.
I'll try this without a mic. Can everybody hear me? Perfect, right? Welcome, Wilmington, to our special town meeting. Before I get started, I'd like to make a few introductions and thank yous. For our Senior Center Building Committee, our Vice Chair was Diane Allen, Terry Marciello, our Senior Center Director, Selectman Lil Marcelli, who replaced Greg Bendel. Thank you, Greg. Teresa Manganelli from our Finance Committee, Jack Holloway and Paul Bellarani, who both serve on both committees. Kevin Kyra for the Town Hall School Building Admin, John Doherty from the Finance Committee, Jesse Fennelly and Steve Turner, both from the School Committee, Paul Ruggiero from the School Department, Glenn Brandt, Superintendent of Schools, both Jeff Hull, our Town Manager, and Susan Inman, our Assistant Town Manager, attended all these meetings. Also with us today is our OPM, Dan Pilata from P3, Lee Morissette from Dietz & Company, the designer for the Senior Center, and Phil O'Brien from Johnson Roberts. Thank you very much. I'd also like to thank our IT Director, John O'Neill, who without this wouldn't be possible, Ken Lord and his staff, Kevin Berube, and the WCTV. John, next, please. So this report will be done as a presentation. Next slide. Oh, back up one. So after we completed this high school back in February 2015, in April of 2015, the town meeting, we decided to fund a facility master plan to continue the assessment of our facilities in the town of Wilmington. In December of 2015, the Facility Master Plan Committee met with the consultants first, and in 2018, we compiled the recommendations from the Harriman Group. 2019, the Senior Center Building Committee and the Town Hall School Admin Building Committee were formed. In June of 2020, out of our annual town meeting, funding to hire both our OPM and the designers for the feasibility started. In fall of 2020, we hired our OPM and the designers for the feasibility study, which was completed in 2021. And in 2022, the schematic design was completed and the recommendations were made, and that's what we're here on today. That's how we got here. Next slide, please. These are the key findings of our facility master plan. As you can see, in 2022, it was identified that the Senior Center, Town Hall, School Admin were identified as our first projects to take place. And this timeline here goes out to the year 2034. So these were all of our buildings that were assessed for the town of Wilmington. Next slide, please. Everybody recognizes this. This is our senior center, built in 1935. It's about 8,300 square feet. Built originally as a school, and in 1986 it was repurposed as our town senior center. We never really had a senior center before, so this was repurposed and put into place. That front door there, just make note of that. Next slide, please. These pictures were recently taken. Just to give you an idea, there's about 40 parking spots at the senior center, so when they have an event there, once this parking lot's full, that's the full capacity. This is one of the limitations that we have there. Next slide, please. On the left, that's the craft area that they have in the building, kind of showing you the space limitations. And on the right, that's where that front door was. That's what we use for storage over there. So we don't have a lot of storage in this facility, and programming and space criteria makes it a little tough for activities to happen. Next slide, please. This is the main hallway of the senior center. I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with that. And as you can see, the book storage, and the picture on the right is the game room, which is also housed in the same room as the craft area. And you can see the storage of chairs and everything that they need for that facility. Next slide, please. This here is the attic space. They use this as storage also, and you can see the accessibility issues that we have going up into this facility. Next slide, please. This here is the workshop downstairs. I was talking about accessibility. These are the stairs that go down into the workshop. This is where they have the wood shop area. So once you build something, you have to carry that up those stairs and get it out of the building. So they've utilized every space they have in this facility. Next slide, please. This here is the operating systems. This is the steam boiler in the Bazell Senior Center. And on the right, that there is some of the paper storage that's down in that workshop area that supplies the needs of the building. Next slide, please. So the committee, a quick overview, is built up of residents from the town of Wilmington that sit on different committees, different boards, and are actual residents of the community. We've produced videos, we supplied information, we've had a lot of public meetings, as you can see. We've hosted community forums, newsletters, and all of this was able to be viewed on WCTV and on our town website. Next slide, please. So this here is a picture of our proposed senior center. It's a schematic design. We still have to go into detailed design, but this is what it's going to look like. Next slide, please. Here is programming. What I mean by programming is our designers here interview, speak with the senior center, find out what their current programming needs are, what they're able to do, what they are unable to do, what they're looking to do in the future, what size capacity, what staffing needs they're going to need, and what the spaces are going to be utilized for. So they take all this information and they try to, as you can see these different colors over here, they put them into room sizes. They make these cubes. And once they have all this information together, then they try to put it into an adjacency. Next slide, please. And what I mean by adjacencies are basically puzzle pieces. So they take these puzzle pieces and they move them around. Try to see what goes with what. So you have your dining room over here. You want to put it next to the kitchen. You try to figure out the size of the dining room, the kitchen size, and how it's going to relate. So once you take these pieces and you put it together, you have your activity areas. You want to have your quiet spaces near your other quiet spaces, maybe a library or a reading area, and then you'll have your fitness areas next to your other recreational areas. So you take all of these pieces of this puzzle and you put them together. And once you do that, next slide, please, you create a floor plan. You move those pieces around, you see how that floor plan is going to lay out. So you look at this design that we have here, you come in the front entrance of the building, you're able to walk straight through, and you have your dining room here off to the side, your kitchen down in the back, your mechanical areas. All this works well together. Up here is your admin that's adjacent to the foyer as you come into the building, and then your hallway that brings you down to the other programmed areas. We'll have a set of doors here that'll be able to isolate this building for evening events. So the rest of the building will be isolated. So the main function room here, which will have dividers in the middle of it, you'll be able to break that room up into 2 parts. So once you do that, so this building could be used in the evening for different events. Next slide, please. Once you have that down, now you look at the exterior of your building. Well, what's it going to look like? What do we really need to do? So the committee has put a lot of time and detail into this. As you can see, we have overhangs here. We try to make it as it's a single level building, no elevators in it, totally accessible throughout the entire building. We try to make it maintenance free, so it's going to stand the test of time. And then in the back area, we'll have overhangs, pergola, and hardscape, which I mean patios, so for outdoor programming. Next slide, please. Once you get that down, now we have to do site development. And working with our designers, in their experience, we're able to take the lot, figure out how we're going to access that off the main street. We're going to take that building that we've laid out and position it in different areas. And believe me, this took a lot of time, too, in the meetings. We put it all over the site, what it was going to look like, how we're going to go. So if you take a good look at this building, you see this is the shadow area. And that's actually what that is. So when the sun comes up, we're actually able to take full effect of that solar sunshine during the day. So the outdoor activities in your patio, your bocce areas, your planters, that you get to enjoy, while the other side of the building is the drop-off area. So a lot of consideration was taken into where that drop-off area is going to be. The service area on the side, as service vehicles will enter, make deliveries. Over here is the dumpsters, really close to that areas. And then up the back here is pickleball courts, which is also attached to the walking trails. So people will be able to come in and park up in this area, go right to the pickleball courts while maintaining parking spaces for the building. Next slide, please. The appropriation and the need for this senior center is $17,264,561. Next slide, please. This appropriation means that we'll be building this new senior center, and it should be completed by 2024, late 2024. We'll be having Christmas dinner there. If we don't vote this, the building's going to stay the way it is. I mean, right now it's at capacity. You don't get the programming that you currently need. As I stated, you have 40 parking spots there. 40 cars show up, and then that's it. And anybody that's been in the senior center, well, an activity's going on in that main room, not much more can happen in the rest of the building. Again, it was designed as a school, not as a senior center. And if we don't, the rest of the program will be impacted, and we will not stay with our facility master plan. Next slide, please. Okay, that was our senior center. Town Hall School Administration Building. Everybody knows these buildings. Glen Road School, all right, built in 1958, 20,000 square feet. Again, built as a school. One thing Wilmington's really good at is we can repurpose things, and we make good use of some of these buildings. Our old town hall, if anyone can remember, was where the art center was. All right, that was 2,700 square feet. That was at our maximum capacity back then. We had no storage there, and staffing was a big issue, and not much for parking. 1984, they repurposed this school. The school wasn't being used as an elementary school anymore, so they moved into this building. At that time, it was fine because they came from 2,700 square feet and went to 2,000, which is good, but still classrooms. Building on the right, built in the late 1800s, the Roman house. As a house, it's a residence. There's 9 people that work full-time in there. Limited accessibility, and the school administration building is scattered, or school administration is scattered through 4 facilities. This being one of them, some at the high school, and West Intermediate, and in the Art Center. Next slide, please. Current conditions over at the Town Hall, for people that have been there, this is our storage. This is our voting equipment, all right? This is what all that storage looks like. This here is our town clerk's office. This is our vault, where we keep, confidential and important information. This up here is also our clerk's office, and this is the auditorium. And as you can see, some of the wiring, 1958 building does not support today's infrastructure for technology. So everything is surface mounted, there's no accessibility. These cement walls go right up to a wood decking ceiling. There is no way that we're able to accommodate things and hide some of this stuff away. It all gets surface mounted. Next slide, please. Still current conditions. This is a telephone demarc room. This is where all telephone information, but we also use it for paper storage. Again, a picture of the vault. This is our engineering office, town manager's office on the side, and this is what we use for storage, all our file cabinets. As you can see, maximum capacity. Next slide, please. The Roman House, current conditions. This is the attic where they store a lot of this information. Some of this is sensitive material that is put up there. Not everybody can get to it because it's up in the attic, of course. And this is office space inside this building. Next slide, please. This is the current art center. We moved student services into this building. There's about 14 full-time employees there. We took all these file cabinets and we were able to make cubicles or office spaces for them. And you can see their record storage, which is in the basement of the building. And this area, this building, because of the way it's kind of set up, there is, for student services, if a parent needs to go in and speak, there's no confidentiality in this building. If you want a private meeting, you don't have it. Next slide, please. Again, the committee here is built up of residents that are doing their due diligence for the town of Wilmington, keeping their best interests in mind. We produce these videos. We tried to provide as much information as we could. All these meetings were public, and everything's available for WCTV and our town website. Next slide, please. Again, our proposed building. This is schematic design. This is the way our new town hall school admin is going to look. Note this building here on the side. This is attached to this. Next slide, please. Programming, same as the senior center. Our designers go in, interview department heads, talk about needs, what they have, what they're going to need, what their space constraints are going to have, and staffing needs currently and what's anticipated in the future. We work closely with the town manager. We try to find those space needs. We develop size and which parts and pieces are going to fit well together. Once we get that, we can utilize, organize, and arrange things. Next slide, please. These are the floor plans. First two floors, first, second, are town offices. The way they're set up for efficiency, when you go into the building, you'll be able to go from one department to the next. Everything will be fully efficient, not only for you as residents, but for the employees and department heads in the building for communication. Third floor, school admin. Now we've taken those 4 locations, everything's consolidated. So you, as a parent, or need to go speak to the superintendent, then need to go to student services, you don't have to go from one building, get in your car and go to the next one. It's all going to be here, right in this building. So there are going to be spaces that are going to be combined for town and school offices to use. And what I was talking about on the left-hand side, this is a big meeting hall. This we can use for public hearings. So if you've been to our current town hall, when we do our pre-meeting with the Finance Committee and Planning, this is where we're going to have it. And in the back area, a smaller meeting room for the selectmen or the school committee to meet. This building will be able to be also isolated. There'll be a set of doors right about here. So at evening, the community can use this building for whatever meetings need to be, while isolating the rest of this building. Next slide, please. So this gives you a bird's eye view. So now that we've got all that down, this is our building development. All right? This is where the building's going to sit, right across from where our high school is. That's the building that you're in today. Here's the Roman House right here, 4th of July building. So it kind of gives you an idea. Now we're actually building a civic center across from the Common. So we have our town hall, school admin, we have our high school, we have our library down here, we have our churches, and we have our Common. Next slide, please. The front of the building, right here, 3 floors. The facade of the building is meant to complement this building. So it'll be very similar. Although it doesn't quite show it here, what this building looks like, it has the red brick, some of the cement work, and you see the pillars right here. Second floor, the back of the building has 2 floors. This here is the current senior center, so you can see the roof line, and that's by design. The reason that happens is when you're coming to the building, you're not seeing this mammoth building. So for abutters and neighbors in the area that are used to the senior center right there, that roof line is going to be just about the same, and that meeting hall is going to be a little bit lower. Next slide, please. This is site development. That comes next. So we increase the amount of parking spaces that are there. So originally it was 247. That's what's existing right now. We're going to have 300. So we're going to add another 53 parking spaces. That does not include the parking spaces back here at the senior. And please note, the Swain Green, as we call it, is still there, and all this area is still wide open. Next slide, please. So our OPM went down and took some drone footage of our 4th of July celebration we had going on, and took actually every ride that was there and put it in place to show what it would look like if we were having our 4th of July celebration. Swain Green's still here, still have plenty of parking for daily activities going on. I know the 4th of July usually lasts about 4 days. So we could still have plenty of room, activity, and have our senior center. And here's that meeting hall that I was talking about. Next slide, please. So the appropriation needed for this town hall and school admin is $36,880,766. Next slide, please. This appropriation means that this building will be built in the year 2025, completed. What a vote no means that school administration that's currently in the Roman House, they can't stay there. They've been there since 1950, and today it's not conducive for an office space. It doesn't have, it has accessibility issues. It doesn't have a lot of the conveniences that are needed. And again, no confidentiality once you get in there. And in the big picture, we're not going to stay within our timelines for our facility master plan, and the town hall will continue to operate on borrowed time. Next slide, please. Here's a picture that shows both of these projects. Town hall school admin building completed in 2025 and 2024 for the senior center. Thank you for coming out today. It's all up to you guys on which way you want to do it. We put a lot of hard work and effort into it, but we've done the best that we can for this here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hooper. We will now proceed to random draw to determine the order of Articles 2 and 3. Article 3 will be drawn first. Article 3, to see if the town will vote to appropriate the sum of $36,880,766, more or less, to be expended under the direction of the town manager in consultation with the Town Hall School Administration Building Committee for the purpose of constructing, originally equipping, and furnishing a new Town Hall School Administration building, including site preparation and design costs, and all costs incidental and related thereto, with the funding for said appropriation anticipated as follows. Raised by taxation, nil. Transfer from free cash, $12 million. Transfer from stabilization, nil. Borrow, $24,880,766. Other, nil. Or take any other action related thereto. Ms. O'Connell.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I move that the town vote to appropriate the sum of $36,880,766 to be expended under the direction of the town manager in consultation with the Town Hall School Administration Building Committee for the purpose of constructing, originally equipping, and furnishing a new Town Hall School Administration building, including site preparation and design costs, and all costs incidental and related thereto. To meet this appropriation, the sum of $12 million be transferred from available funds, otherwise known as free cash, and that the treasurer, with the approval of the Board of Selectmen or any other enabling authority, be authorized to borrow under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 44, the balance of $24,880,766, and further to authorize the town manager to execute all contracts and agreements and to take all related actions necessary or appropriate to carry out the purposes of this article.
Thank you, Ms. O'Connell. I'll accept that as the main motion. Is there a second? The motion has been made and seconded. Finance Committee recommends approval of Article 3. Discussion, Ms. O'Connell.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I would like to remain seated to make my comments, please, just in the interest of time. I'd like to thank this assembly for being here today. I know you all took time out of your day to be here. I'd like to thank George Hooper for the very detailed presentation for all the projects that we are discussing today. I'd also like to preface my comments by sharing that a great deal of effort has been invested by residents serving on committees to establish a facilities master plan to plot out the work to be done with our town buildings. The results of these efforts were released in 2018 with that plan, and these same residents have volunteered their time and energy in conjunction with town staff to act on that plan, and the Town Hall School Administration Building was officially formed. Some of these members and others have spent hours and months to get us to today because of the 2020 town meeting vote, where Wilmington residents decided that this project was needed and worthy of exploring, and we have already appropriated $955,000 towards this endeavor. Now is the time to act on their plan. I'd like to publicly thank everyone who has worked on this project to date for your service and your time on behalf of our community. As has been stated, neither the Roman House nor the Town Hall building were designed for their current uses. The Roman House is actually a home that was repurposed as a school admin building, and as has been stated, it is not adequately set up like many homes to accommodate large meetings. As has been noted in Mr. Hooper's report, the Roman House is woefully lacking in space for secure record storage. It should be noted that the Roman House is not connected to a sewer system or to a septic system and only has a holding tank for effluent. This holding tank must be pumped out quite frequently. For the Roman House, individuals with mobility challenges, which could include employees or parents and guardians, cannot enter that building. Even if they could access the first floor, they simply cannot access the second floor meeting space. There is not ample space at the school administration buildings to have confidential conversations with parents or guardians about student matters or to address any personnel matters in a confidential setting. The lack of available space in the Roman House requires the use of the former Arts Center, which is the old town hall, the high school, and the West Intermediate School for school administrative personnel. With one new building, it will be far more convenient for parents to have a one-stop location rather than be referred to multiple locations for assistance. Also, a Wilmington family with a new building can tend to both town and school business at one primary location with this new building being built. Regarding the town hall, it was intended to be a temporary location to accommodate the increased space needs that exceeded the 2,700 square feet available in the old town hall, which later became the Arts Center. As has been stated, this was in 1984, when Wilmington had a population under 18,000 people. The number of personnel working in Town Hall has increased over the past 38 years to meeting the growing needs of our population that is now 23,349 people, according to the 2020 U.S. Census data. Town Hall has many of the same constraints as the Roman House. It has lack of record storage space, an inefficient heating system, lack of space for private conversations with town council and town personnel, which are two very important examples, and it is not fully handicap accessible as well. Anyone who's attended any of the meetings in the so-called auditorium knows how poor the acoustics are to hear presenters and even to see presentations. This auditorium also serves as storage for our town's departments. There have also been challenges with WCTV feeds from this room to allow public access from home. There are climate control issues in this building relative to heat and AC, as well as other building deficiencies that were highlighted in Mr. Hooper's presentation. Some have suggested that all the schools should be addressed first. I want to say personally, as a former teacher and a former school committee member, and also a former student who attended Wilmington Public Schools K through 12, that our schools continue to be critically important. I believe that the town has demonstrated that with allocating anywhere from $2 to $4.5 million each year in capital improvements, we are supporting our schools, as well as offering a healthy school budget that last year was voted in total, including Shawshene Tech, to be $51,733,837 for 1 year for a budget. Additionally, the town has successfully built 2 new schools in the past 15 years, and most recently we'll be embarking on another school endeavor which is on the horizon with the current MSBA process. If we had adopted the approach of schools only in the past, there would never have been a public safety building. The fire department would still be in a building with bays too small to house the current fire apparatus, and a police station too small to provide space for our very needed detectives and a health and recovery coordinator, to name a few. If we construct only schools and create new elementary schools in the future rather than taking on building projects such as this, and that is the expectation, we will never address the issues that we have with the town hall, the concept of a new fire substation, the issues that we have with the Department of Public Works, the library, and other public building headquarters that will no longer be able to be addressed. Residents will benefit from having a building that is accessible to all residents of all abilities, which is not wasting any further tax dollars on inefficiencies across the board. This building will be a shared resource in the town with key leaders and departments all under one roof. It will be one building to maintain rather than several for years to come, which makes both practical and financial sense for the town and its people. I will say that I've heard much about both projects and many analogies used. One that came to mind was when you have an old car with high mileage that requires a lot of repairs, and it may not be large enough to accommodate your current family circumstances. People typically look at a newer vehicle that suits their needs, and they draw a line in the sand as to how much money they are willing to spend before it makes practical sense to start new and have a new beginning. This is where I believe we are with the town hall and the Roman House. In my opinion, now is the time to take action and to support to improve our public building infrastructure. We have an opportunity to address this building and its need with the current cost estimates that will only increase if we wait. They have already increased since the facilities master plan was originally issued. We have an opportunity to do this now while paying for this project within the town's operating budget without an increase to the taxpayer. It is clear through all the work and analysis that has been done that the dollars we spend today will be more important than the significantly increasing dollars we will have to spend tomorrow. Doing nothing will not equate to a $0 spend. Personally, I no longer want to wait and spend good money after bad for significantly aged and end-of-life buildings. For both departments, there are no viable alternative plans at this point, and commercial leasing to me is a non-starter and is not available or a cost-effective option at this time, and offers no permanent building solution for the town for our future. Again, now is the time to approve this project, and I hope all residents will join me in voting yes for this warrant article. Regardless of how you choose to vote, I choose to believe, as a longtime Wilmington resident, that we all are going to vote on what's best for the town and think about what the town's needs are for the future. We need to support our schools, we need to support our buildings, and we need to support the people that live here as well as the people that work here. We want to be a destination for the future. We want to be an attractive place for people to come and live and work and to raise a family. Mr. Moderator, at this time, I would like to yield the remainder of my time to Mr. Hooper, who will provide some brief video footage to give this assembly a personal view of these buildings prior to our deliberation and a vote on this article. Thank you.
All right, Ms. O'Connell, you can yield the remainder of your time to Mr. Hooper. And after that, we will open up to further discussion. Oh, Mr. Hooper, just one second. After Mr. Hooper's presentation is completed, and I understand it is brief, remember, for folks that are listening in the gymnasium, there are no microphones in the gymnasium, so if you wish to be heard on discussion on this motion or any other motion coming up, to please make your way to a microphone located in the auditorium. Mr. Hooper, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Selectman O'Connell. Well said. Thank you very much. WCTV has been working with my committee and the town to put together a couple of small videos which will explain some additional information. At this time, I'm going to ask John O'Neill to play those videos.
Hello, my name is Glenn Brand, and it is my pleasure to serve as the superintendent of the Wilmington Public Schools. Our community is coming up on an important decision regarding two potential capital projects in town. The first is consideration for the construction of a new senior center to serve members of our community, and the second is the consideration for the construction of a new building to jointly provide space for the town hall and school administration. As a school system, we serve approximately 2,800 students and rely upon the collective efforts of close to 500 full and part-time staff to help support the operations of 8 schools, pre-K through 12. We also rely upon the combined efforts of close to 30 people to support our schools and employees, collectively known as the central office staff. These folks help support our human resources, finance department, technology, student support services, curriculum and instruction, transportation, and the Office of the Superintendent. In fact, this staff manages everything from payroll to accounts payable and all other budget and personnel matters for the entire district. Currently, the group of almost 30 folks are located in 4 different buildings and office spaces throughout town. Not because we want to or because we think it is best to support the work we do, but because we have no choice. The Roman house was originally built in the 1900s and largely remains in the same configuration. While I know there is much pride in Wilmington's rich history, including this facility, it is a historic house first and foremost, and unfortunately, it shows. The spaces are cramped, but beyond cramped is the reality of working in close quarters that include some significant impediments that this space presents. First, the Roman house is not accessible. There are no ramps, there is no elevator, and no way to enter the building except up these steps. And once inside, the only meeting space where new employees, visitors, or community members can go to meet is up narrow, long stairways. Anyone with mobility issues is unable to access the offices of the school superintendent or the staff in the Human Resources Department. As far as the inside of the Roman house, there are a host of challenges that the 9 staff members have to contend with each day. First, there is only one space in which to hold meetings. What this leads to is the need to constantly be juggling schedules to ensure there is not overlap or conflicts with the use of this one single space. Second, the limitations of the space provide real issues around confidentiality. Making phone calls and having one-on-one conversations are certainly a challenge in these tight quarters. Third, there's a lack of storage altogether. As a result, the attic or the basement have to be used out of necessity. And yes, there is even the need to have filing cabinets in a bathroom. Ultimately, not only is this a challenge from the convenience standpoint, but it is also problematic in that the files on record really should be kept under lock and key. Finally, the control of climate, for example heating and cooling, represents an immense challenge, and there is not a break space in which staff can sit away from their desks to enjoy lunch. Moving on to the Arts Center, many of the same issues apply in this facility, including work being carried out in a very old and dated facility. The bulk of staff have open office cubicles. These folks deal with confidential student information, and engage in remote or virtual meetings that simply can't be completed in this space. The one lone meeting space is overused out of necessity as a result. Additional spaces for our other central office staff includes the Director of Technology and his immediate staff who are currently housed at the high school, as well as our Transportation Coordinator who currently works out of the basement in the West Intermediate School. This arrangement collectively represents an incredible challenge to our work as a leadership team of the Wilmington Public Schools. And while one certainly could argue that this has been the way it has been done for some time, I think it is important to point out that this arrangement represents significant obstacles to maximize our work on behalf of the district in the face of our community. Furthermore, the situation lacks efficiency, often results in the duplication of equipment, and adversely impacts the ability for our senior staff to best organize and collaborate on the work of our district. As a superintendent, I'm grateful for the terrific support and work that the town's Department of Public Buildings does each and every day and each and every year to help maintain our facilities. However, the fact is, they can't be maintained for much longer, and unfortunately, there is no backup plan for us moving forward. Thank you for watching and for your time, and on behalf of our senior central office staff, we appreciate you taking a few moments to learn more about our work here in the town of Wilmington.
When Wilmington residents head to the special town meeting on Saturday morning, November 19th, they will have the opportunity to vote on a new town hall and school admin building. In these times of economic hardship and uncertainty, it's easy to look at a brand new town building as being an unneeded luxury. But the new building will allow Wilmington's government and school system to be their most efficient, effective, and best serve its residents. Wilmington's current town hall is already well beyond its life expectancy, with its structural, electrical, and technological systems all operating well beyond their fail dates. The current town hall has significant failings in energy efficiency, environmental impact, storage space for critical documents, meeting space, technology, and accessibility. A new building would greatly improve the efficiency of both the town's government departments and school systems. It would also significantly improve energy efficiency through better environmental control systems, better insulation, and modernized electrical and technological systems. A new town hall would also greatly improve document storage and organization. Additionally, a new building would be significantly more accessible for those with mobility issues and physical impairments, and new technology and meeting spaces specifically designed for broadcast would make town meetings much more accessible, audible, and visually appealing to remote audiences watching from home. Furthermore, a centralized location would allow for much easier and more seamless collaboration amongst different town and school departments. And because of what is known as the 30% rule, if a new town hall school admin building does not pass a town meeting, and the current town hall experiences a structural or systemic failure, which is quite likely in the future given its age, the town runs the risk of having to spend a significant portion, if not an equal amount altogether, of what it would have budgeted on a new building to simply bring the old building up to codes. When Wilmington residents head to town meeting, they should vote in favor of the new town hall and school admin building. While the upfront costs of construction may seem daunting, a new building is critical for Wilmington's town government to best serve its population. And in the long run, it will end up saving the town of Wilmington in money, energy, and be much more environmentally friendly, while also making town government much more accessible to residents. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you. Further discussion on Article 3. Please identify yourself by name and address for the record.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Kevin McDonald, 140 Andover Street. I'd just like to give you my position on this article. First of all, I don't have a lot of time to properly thank you seniors for all your contributions to our town and our nation. I'll do that another time, but I really want you to know that I do really appreciate every senior, and I can honestly say that I've never met anyone who doesn't want to be a blessing to our seniors. With regard to the school, the one thing that they didn't mention to you is the debt that's going to be coming on board for the Wildwood School, which is going to negatively impact people. My personal feelings when I see these videos is that I'm disturbed that we have a public buildings department and I see a building for years and years and years that's a historic building that's in a beautiful historic district falling into a state of that disrepair. That should not be happening, folks. I did talk to one guy who made probably the best suggestion that I've heard to integrate the Roman house into the setting of the high school, and that would be to have a different color scheme matching the high school. With regard to the new proposed town hall, I just feel as though that's an excessive amount of debt to pile on people when you're looking to build a new school, the Wildwood. I personally think this section of town is a beautiful historic district, and I feel as though that building looks like an industrial building that belongs on Ballard Vale Street or something like that. I go to town meetings and I see the various articles that come up, and every single year we're spending millions of dollars repairing flat roofs. And it's my personal opinion that any new building that gets built in town should have a pitch roof so that we don't have that expense for the rest of history of this town. Concerning the existing town hall, I was at a selectman meeting and I asked this specific question: what are your plans if the voters choose to build a town hall and they build a new school and they build a senior center? What are your plans for the existing town hall? And they said, we don't have any plans. So that building, folks, would be a vacant building. And the problem that I have with these articles is they're misguided and they have poor vision and they're not well thought out to benefit the town in the best possible way and to get the best possible financing solution, whether it comes from federal funds or state funds, rather than your pocketbooks piling debt on you folks. And instead of being a blessing to seniors, you're forcing seniors out of town. And I think the number one priority in town is affordable senior housing. When I see the presentation, I'm thankful for the hard work that you put into it, but when I see wires left exposed, you can frame a wall, folks, and you could put wires behind that. We just need a better operation, and we need people to recognize that the people of Wilmington are negatively impacted by taxes, especially after COVID. And so I'm just asking you folks to put a stop to this article and get a better place and a better vision for the town and respect the people's cost of living. I don't think we should be forcing people out of town. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
I think we're going to go to Ms. Burns, Ms. Plowman, and then Mr. Doherty. Ms. Burns, just name and address for the record. Might need to give the microphone a second to catch up to you. There we go.
MJ Burns, 9 Pinewood Road. So I first want to thank, with the most sincerest gratitude, for all committee members who have worked on these boards to give us the presentation that we have today. I'm not going to stand here to unwarrant or to usurp the need of which was spoken to, especially in the Roman house, which is an 125-year-old residential home. What you see is what they've been working in, and it's disappointing that it's taken this long for it to get the attention it certainly should have received decades ago. But I am standing up here today to vote no on this, not on this plan itself, but going forward with the building of a new town hall and school administration building. I sincerely think that the Botwell is in the same situation as the town hall currently. Granted, it's used for education, but we have ceiling tiles that we've been replacing at the North Street School. Our schools are in need. The schools are the backbone of this community, and it serves residents and our youngest learners. And that is our priority, and that's my priority at this time, not to push, digress, but I think the priority should be within the schools and the upcoming projects, and I think we have the opportunity in the future to address the conversations over the past 2 decades with our schools. So standing here, I don't think this, as much as the Roman House is a priority, and our departments have been, as Mr. Hooper had spoken to, how we've repurposed and reused what we have to meet our needs. That's what we currently are doing within our school administration. Ideal? No, it's not. But I know that we can problem solve this together until we can get to this juncture in projects within our municipal buildings. But I think the priorities are skewed, and as much as I think this is a needed situation, I don't think at this time that we should be proceeding with the building of this project. Thank you so much.
Just in the order that I'm seeing folks approach the microphone, we're going to go to Ms. Plowman, then Mr. Doherty, Mr. McCoy, the gentleman in the back, Mr. Turner, and then the woman in the back left. So, Ms. Plowman.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I have a couple of questions.
Just name and address for the record.
Oh, sorry. Melissa Plowman, 153 Main Street. So these are less comments and more questions. One question I have is, can you remind us of the amount of money that has already been appropriated and invested into the town hall and school admin building for feasibility and design? And if a no vote passes, are we just out that money? Do we have to start again? Do we have to reinvest in the process that has unfolded to date so far?
Okay, I'm going to take the first part of that. On the annual town meeting on June 27th, 2020, Article 15 appropriated $955,000 out of free cash for the feasibility study, and to either Mr. Hall or Mr. Perry on what would happen with any unspent funds on that.
So any unspent funds on these appropriations would just revert to the town's general fund?
Can I ask a follow-up to that?
Yes.
So the plans and the designs that have been brought forth here today, are we able to pick up on a project like that where if a no vote were to happen, or do we have to start this process again, and are we out all of that money that has been utilized so far?
Mr. Hall?
If there's a no vote on both of these projects or one or the other, at some point in time when they are revisited, there is going to have to be essentially a review of what was done for these projects today. Presumably the town would have to re-engage another OPM, another designer, and they'll look at what was done to this point, but there will likely be revisions because there will have been presumably changes in building code, and there will be other changes. So it's not like these plans can just be put on the shelf and then picked up in 5 or 10 years and completely reused.
Thank you for that. And lastly, I think it's important to better understand also what impact a yes vote will have on future building of schools in the town. I think it's important to remind the community that moving forward with either of the two projects that are subject of conversation this morning does not impact the building of the Wildwood School. Can you confirm that?
Mr. Hall?
That is correct. I think that's an incredibly important point, that if these two projects are voted in the affirmative, that has no bearing on the ability to go forward with the Wildwood School project, nor would a no vote accelerate the ability to go forward with the Wildwood project. That is on a schedule that is established by the Massachusetts School Building Authority, and whatever the vote is here today, that process will continue as it's set up by the MSBA.
Thank you. And lastly, so I think that is obviously a priority for so many of us, is the Wildwood School. But also the future of other school buildings in town is obviously on the minds of a lot of people. Can you tell us what implications does building this school admin and town hall building, how does that impact future school buildings? Let's say in 5 or 6 years down the road, we're going to have to keep up the momentum clearly with our school buildings because they were all built right around the same time. They're all aging quickly. And are there implications that you can anticipate or envision that projects that we do now could interfere or prohibit us from maintaining and keeping up the momentum with the building of additional schools?
I don't think that the passage of these two articles will interfere with the ability to do future schools. Without getting too far afield here, regardless of whether these projects are approved or disapproved, the cost of a new school, similar to when the middle school was done and when the high school was done, will require a debt exclusion. That's just the reality. You can't spend $150 million and absorb that in a town operating budget. So that'll happen whether these projects are approved or disapproved. But to emphasize the point, the fact that we're able to, because of the resources and the reserve funds that we put aside, be able to use some of those funds to offset the cost is going to be important. When the borrowing takes place on a senior center or a town school admin, as that borrowing starts to taper off, the expectation is the new school would be additional borrowing, and that would replace the debt that is starting to fall off.
Thank you.
All right, so we're going to go to Mr. Doherty next, then Mr. McCoy, Mr. Turner. I'm sorry, the gentleman in the back, then Mr. Turner, and the woman in the back to my left. Again, if folks in the gymnasium wish to be heard, please make your way to the auditorium and get in line to speak to the microphone. Mr. Doherty, name and address for the record.
Thank you. Good morning. What has been brought up is both
name and
projects.
Address for the record.
I'm sorry?
Name and address for the record.
John Doherty, 18 Belleville. What hasn't been brought up on both these projects is the debt. The debt would be repaid out of the town operating budget. There'd be no override on this, so it wouldn't affect your tax rate right now, or ever, actually. It would be the new schools that would have an override that would affect your tax rates. So if both these passes, you will not see a tax increase due to these two projects. So I'll make that clear to everyone. Thank you.
Mr. McCoy.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, and I'm happy that you still remember my name and the good folks out here. I give you credit
It's
for
tough
that.
to recognize you with a goatee, Mr. McCoy.
Well,
Name and address.
Yeah, it's
for
a
the
little bit
record.
of retirement. My wife seems to like it. But anyway, Michael McCoy, 11 Treasure Hill Road, Wilmington. You're going to hear the word priority a lot, and that's exactly what I wrote down before good folks talked about priority. And I want to let you know something. I served on that board for 30 years, and I've been around. I understand how things work. And in public life and in private life, you prioritize things. For example, in private life, if you need a second car, a swimming pool, or if you need a brand new heating system, what is the priority? Be a heating system, right? You heard earlier that if we did all schools, we would not have a safety building. That's not true. And I could be wrong, and I apologize. I don't think any members of the present board was on when I was on, but we did prioritize. I supported and was in favor of a new middle school because we needed to take the curse off the elementary level, which passed. The next priority was a safety building, which I supported. And then later on, there was talk about a high school, which I supported. You put priorities in life. This is not a priority here tonight on the new town hall / school administration. And I know they need to do something about it, but we need to prioritize. That's the theme today, folks. And let me tell you something. When there's talk about we're not going to raise your taxes, all we're doing is kicking the can down the road, and we may have to take something from somewhere else. You know, you don't have to be a Harvard grad to figure that one out. And you know what you're going to do? Our grandkids and other generations, or more so, us still alive, there could be something happens in a few months from now or a few years. Prioritize, okay? Now, back in 2020, when the pandemic was here, and we had the special town meeting, I believe, out by the football field, and that's when they made the appropriation for the feasibility study for, the senior center, which will be coming up, but also the feasibility study, which was just under $1 million for the town hall. I was the only person to get up in the mic and said, folks, you learn a lot from history. You should really put it under one umbrella. Vote all of it at one time. Because if you vote against this tonight, which I hope you do, you just flushed out $1 million that we could have used elsewhere. And I'll tell you, folks, I was on the board back in 2004, 2005, when there was talk about a construction of a new library. And I'm not Nostradamus. I said, I don't support, and I did. I ran on that, opposed to a library. We're going to need a new high school in the next 10 years. Guess what, folks? We did need a new high school in the 10 years, but the good folks did, and I you know, hey, you can vote. They voted for the appropriation, I don't know, 150 grand, whatever it was, for the library. It failed right now, like at this meeting, that it could happen. It failed the appropriation for the project. So we just flushed down 150,000. So when you go away tonight, you got to say to yourself, where are the priorities? And I'll just sum this up right now. You know, this vote really hinges on you good senior citizens that are here today. And I understand how politics work. You vote for mine, I vote for yours. And that's what I've been hearing. You know, I just don't go around election time to the seniors to say hello. For years, I've gone to the dinners that they've had. You know, it shows, right? The corned beef dinners, the Halloween parties, anything. I was there. And then when they talked about the senior center, we'll talk about that later. So I'm there and I hear folks, and folks have come up to me who are seniors. This vote right now hinges on you senior citizens. Everyone is hoping in this room, and they've encouraged through voice of people, you vote for the town hall, we're gonna vote for the seniors. The boogeyman is not going to come home and follow you. You good seniors, think about it. All we're doing is kicking the can down the road. All you citizens, we're kicking the can down the road on this. There are other priorities. The Wildwood School, in my opinion, is more of a priority than a new town hall / school administration. A new substation in North Wilmington is more of a priority than the town hall / school administration. You prioritize things. And I said it again, good folks who's in the gymnasium, good folks that are here, seniors. Vote this thing down, because your grandkids are going to be footing the bill on this. You're still going to foot the bill on this. No magic credit card out there, folks. We're taking away other priorities. The word is priorities. Vote this thing down. Take the $1 million loss, which should have ever happened. Go on with your day. And the next thing, let's do the fire substation in North Wilmington priority and a new Howard Street school located somewhere else. That's the priority. That's what we should be doing. Vote this thing down. Seniors, vote it down. They're relying on you. Don't get cons into this. Vote your conscience. Get up, vote it down. We're going to support the senior facility project that we're going to do. Think of your kids. Think of the schools.
Yes, Mr. Hull to either correct a mistake or provide an explanation.
My comment to that is a couple of things. First of all, it was noted earlier that one of the school committee members is opposed apparently to this project. I would just quote from a August 4th, 2014 piece in the Apple. This was referencing a school committee that took place at that time. At the meeting on Wednesday, July 29th, the school committee reached a consensus that the Roman House is no longer a suitable location for the school administration office, citing several inadequacies with the 118-year-old building in the area of workspace, accessibility, infrastructure, and safety. They went on to say the school committee has reached the consensus that renovating the Roman House would be costly and impractical as the entire building would need to be brought up to code, which would necessitate the addition of an elevator and sprinkler system. Peggy Kane, who was on there at the time, and as many of you know, was a prominent person in town, served both on the school committee and the school committee and the library trustees, was very passionate about trying to find a solution for the Roman House. With regard to this idea of kicking the can down the road, I've seen commentary on social media about the fact that the town doesn't do anything with its buildings. The fact of the matter is we've had a plan in place for both the schools. The middle school was done in 2000, public safety building was done in 2000, the high school was done in 2015. As was noted earlier, we came up with this facilities plan with the idea of looking at the long term, looking at the buildings that need to be replaced. The fact that people are now saying kick the can down the road on these buildings, on the town school building, doesn't really make sense to me. Certainly schools are important. We all want to have educated kids. I would make the point, though, that as much as the teachers and the police officers and the firefighters are the stars on the front line, so to speak, this is all a team effort. If you don't have a functioning town hall that's conducive to people that are working there, or a school admin building that is conducive to people that are working there. First of all, with respect to revenue, 78% of the town's revenue comes from property taxes, for better or worse. That's the reality. If you don't have an assessor's office that can go out and value property to give to the treasurer, to give to the collector, to issue tax bills, to collect that money, then all of those folks on the front line, those stars, so to speak, aren't going to be able to do their job. If you don't have people in the payroll office, in the HR office, to actually hire the folks that are the teachers and the firefighters and the police officers, then you're not going to be able to educate your kids. You're not going to be able to do what we need to do in terms of services. If you don't have the collector's office, or the treasurer's office rather, to issue the paychecks to the teachers and the firefighters and the police officers, nobody works for free. So these folks who are working in these administrative buildings, they may not be the stars of the show, so to speak, but they are performing a very vital support role. Just like the star quarterback on the winning team, he's not a star quarterback if he doesn't have the supporting cast. And the people that are working in these unheralded positions, whether it's the town manager's office or the collector's office, school admin office, they do their jobs day in and day out. Many of them are citizens just like you, just trying to do the best they can in environments that are very difficult. It's crazy to me, speaking about the town hall, that in the wintertime, because of the lack of an efficient heating system, we have people in some cases with windows open because the temperatures are stifling, while at the same time on the other side of the building we have people with space heaters because the heat doesn't work. That's just a waste of taxpayer money. And I think this is an opportunity for the town to finally come together and say, look, these buildings need to be addressed. It's not going to get any cheaper 10 years down the line. Let's take this plan that was done, that we spent $148,000 to put together, that we used a lot of resources from residents serving on the Permanent Building Committee, residents like you that put this effort forward. Let's execute that plan. We oftentimes get criticized about how we come up with these plans and they just sit on a shelf. This is an effort on our part to say, we have a plan, let's execute the plan. Thank you.
We're going to go to the gentleman in the back to my right. So yes, in the with the sunglasses.
Hey.
And we've got a queue. I've got a list going. So there's a couple folks on stage. If you're in line, I got you. So bear with us.
Michael Comozio, 19 Dorothy Ave. I wanted to say the master plan was well done, and I understand that you have to plan, you have to prioritize, you have to do things in a specific order. And I think these two votes are directly related. I guess more of a question: have we considered that the senior center, which is in poor shape, we vote that in, we move the location, how the current senior center can be utilized, maybe for the school committee, maybe for other school administration offices, so we can more right-size the new town hall. I love the site plans. I think both locations were well thought out. So I guess, is that a question that I can ask, if how we consider reusing the current Buzzell building?
So I'm going to look to Mr. Hooper for an explanation as to potential reuse of the Buzzell School site.
Thank you. So we have not developed a plan for that building afterwards once these things get approved, but I will let you know, unlike your home and your residence where you just go out and hire a heating guy, I need a new furnace, new heating system. When you start to invest money into these buildings, you will trip certain codes. These are public buildings. These are not residents. These are not your home that you live in. So when you start putting in a heating system, you need new windows, new roofs. Once you get to 30% or a certain square footage, certain codes get triggered. And this is by design. This is so you'll have these buildings brought up to current codes. Back in 1984, when we did that for the town hall, these building codes were not in place. So what we'll have to do is, as the gentleman stated, so now that we've vacated the current senior center, we want to move them in. While it's vacant, we have to do certain upgrades. We will have to provide look at the heating system, see what thresholds that we're going to maybe install a sprinkler system, start looking at the design of the building. Again, that building, built in 1935, fieldstone foundation on a good section of it. So, and I could have my designers or my OPM talk on this. I won't at this point unless you have some questions. It's not seismic, which I mean earthquake, the way things are built today for public buildings, so these will have to be brought up to code. I hope that answers your question.
I think, so just to elaborate, I provide professional services for state and government agencies. I work on certified studies. I'm familiar with the codes. I understand the 30%. I raise the question of renovating that building, knowing you're probably gonna have to line the foundation with concrete. You're gonna bring in a sprinkle system. I think there's a lot of old buildings in the Commonwealth. There's some that are good, there's some that are bad, there's some that can be reused. And I guess the follow-up question is, if we were to vote yes, can we consider how that can fit into the program? And if we can save some money, if repurposing part of that building ends up cheaper than putting a third floor, for example, on the proposed town hall?
Well, again, like I said, fieldstone foundation, you're not going to be putting an additional floor on that. But
that wasn't my question.
What was the question? Sorry.
So I understand, and so that for the benefit of the assembly, we all understand what your inquiry is. Are you asking if, I suppose, if Article 3 does pass, and there would be a new town hall school administration building, is there a potential future reuse for the Bazell School?
Yes, I guess if we were to pass, so allocate, $35, $36 million. If we were to pass yes, both votes, and we were to reuse that Bazell Senior Center site, would the project take into consideration reusing that and potentially save money? I don't want to vote a full amount of money in if we're not going to, we're just going to consider using the full amount for the 3-story town hall, or we look at if it's cheaper, potentially to reuse some of the spaces, right-size the town hall, and maybe save some money.
Mr. Hooper?
Well, the issue with that building, it's not big enough, obviously. So, back to the purpose on these buildings that are all currently occupied, to try to do some of these improvements while they're being used. I mean, just think about it. These here are used every day by these staff. So,
I guess what I mean is, by the time we talk about 2024 and 2025, there's potentially a year in there where the building would be empty if the senior center is already opened. We could renovate that building as part of the construction of the new town hall.
So just to be clear, that would be outside of the scope of the article and the motion, so it would.
I just want to ask that question.
That would require a separate town meeting vote with a different warrant.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Turner in front.
Stephen Turner, 59 Washington Avenue, speaking as a private citizen. The priority question and the funding question, the concern I have with that line of thinking is if we don't vote yes for this, we will have significant costs over the next several years until we get to the point where we might need to vote yes on something else. And so is it really worth, the short story is we could end up spending a lot more money on this and have less money available for the schools in the long run, talking 5, 10, 15 years. If we take the time on this to say no, we need to then do something different with the Roman House. Hundreds of thousands of dollars on rent for an office space. We need to do something different with the Glen Road building, which could be millions of dollars if we hit the 30% threshold. So I would argue that saying no today is simply costing us, our children, and to the points made by other people, cost us and our children and our seniors more money in the long run. So I strongly encourage you to reconsider that line of thinking where in the long run, we might have less for the schools. And the schools are the priority, but we have to do all these things. We have to spend money on buildings. How we spend money, are we gonna spend it smart on a new car, on a newer car, or are we gonna put a new transmission and exhaust system and $10,000 in a $2,000 car? It's a great metaphor. So thank you very much. Have a good day.
All right, we're going to go to the woman in the back left, just so we have the order of operations. We have the woman in the back left, we have the microphone front right, we have the microphone front left. We have a couple folks on stage who have indicated a desire to speak, and then we're going to go to Ms. Rousseau.
Hi, I'm Jackie Allard, 12 Thurston Ave. So I just wanted to stand up, and I was moved to stand up when people were talking a little bit about priority or talking about the buildings and talking about the money. And I felt like, although Mr. Holly did a great job after I already stood up, talking about the people that work and do these services for us and take care of our kids. So I have a daughter who I need to work with school services on because she has dyslexia. And so I have to talk to them, and I see the sheer weight of all the number of issues they're dealing with, and it makes it really difficult because you see these people are stretched, and you see that they don't have the time to handle all the workload. But then imagine going every day to a building that is just not well kept and depressed. How do we make sure that we have the right services around all of our kids and around our town to make sure that the people who are working for us, because these are all people that work for us, have a place that's safe, that actually helps them become efficient, actually drives savings down the hall, and actually does things for all of us in the future. So similar to what Mr. Turner said about thinking about, hey, don't think about it could be money spent, the money now versus how much it could cost later. Think about the fact that if you're an employee, potentially you look for another job because it's not a nice place to work. And that costs more money because every time you go out to get more people, you lose efficiencies. So I would just say to think about it in that way. I have kids in this town. My kids went to the Wildwood. I completely understand the need to have to do that school. But it is so unrelated and the next thing that we can tackle that I think that we can get these projects on and get people focused, if we can get them passed, and then go full blazing towards fixing the Wildwood. So for me, that's sort of my opinion. I wanted to share my thoughts.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I believe Mrs. Sullivan was standing before I was.
All right, then I'm going to go to Ms. Sullivan and then back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, and thank you. It wouldn't have been a big deal. Suzanne Sullivan, 60 Lawrence Street. I stand today in opposition of this article, and it's not anything against any town employees at the town hall or school administration. You know, a lot of them are very respectable people. They work really hard. But almost every single issue that was brought up about the inefficiencies of the town hall and the school administration buildings, you could exactly say the same thing about the schools. Almost every single one. The conditions that the teachers have to work in, the conditions that the children have to go to school in, the lack of air conditioning, having to wear jackets during classrooms because it's cold in one classroom and it's warm in another classroom. This has been going on for years. When I was selectman, I did tour of all the public buildings in 2004. And the schools at that time were in terrible condition. There were children in closets for special education classes. It was horrible. The elementary schools have been kicked down. That can has been kicked down the road for over 20 years. It was supposed to be a temporary solution with having 5 schools. Yes, and this is a consideration in voting for the town hall because we do have to pick priorities. We're not all rich. I don't make $200,000 a year or $150,000 a year. I don't have a lot of money. I was a single mom, raised 3 children, sent them off to college, in debt up to my eyeballs for school. I want our town to pick priorities. A new town hall, a new administration building is just not a priority. Yes, it's something that we have to do, but is it a priority? One of the most important things that we can do as citizens of this town, and quite frankly of the country and the world, is to educate our children and to make sure that they have every single resource that we can afford available to them. This will take resources away. Don't believe what they're saying. It absolutely will. And we're not just looking at the Wildwood, we're looking at the whole elementary school system. It could be, you heard the town manager, he said $110 million. Well, this is $38 million, $37 million, whatever the case is, that's going to impact us. And quite frankly, it irritates me when I see the film clips of the deplorable condition of the existing buildings that we have, when we've been sitting on $40 million in either free cash or capital stabilization funds. And it has not, the deplorable conditions at the town hall certainly hasn't stopped them from collecting taxes. Because that's why we have that $40 million. I say enough is enough. I say that we put The school's first. Come back with this when the time is right. I'm willing to listen to it then, but I want to see our schools taken care of like I did in 2004. Please vote this down. We need you, the seniors. Vote for the kids. We're here for you. Be here for the kids. Thank you.
Mr. Kyra, what is your point of information?
Point of information, the last speaker pointed to the dais and said that we make $200,000. People, we make nothing. We volunteer our time. I just want that to be known that not even the town manager makes $200,000. I can assure you of that. And I don't make a dime, and no one up here does as well. So to be pointed to say we make $200,000, please, don't believe it.
Mr. Kyra, if you were making $200,000, I got into the wrong line of work. To the gentleman in front, Ms. Burns, I do see that you're up to speak. I do want to make sure that other people that have not yet spoken have the opportunity, so I will make note of it. What is your point of personal preference?
Bill referenced me and his...
I think he referenced a school committee member.
who was in opposition, and I've been the only school committee member to speak. I'm not here as a school committee member, I'm here as a citizen.
Okay, so I'm going to, please address the microphone. I'll give you your opportunity to make a point of personal privilege, but yep, we're just going to just deal with it now.
Okay, thank you. Point of personal preference, I'm Jay Burns, 9 Pinewood Road. I am here as a resident and a taxpayer of this community, not as a school committee member, since the articles before us today are not school committee or within our purview as a board. I'm here as a resident. I'm standing here as my personal opinion of hearing the discussions about our municipality buildings for over 20 years. Substation is something that I've heard the board and the FinCom talk about, yet we've never gotten it through. I do think that in the near...
Ms. Burns, I just want to limit your comment just to the point of personal privilege.
Okay. I do, even though that you referenced a school committee meeting of several years ago. Again, I don't stand in opposition of the thought. I do stand in opposition of addressing this project now. And if anybody absolutely respects the team that works for these schools, our administration, enough cannot be said for Dr. Brand, Assistant Superintendent Ruggiero, Assistant Superintendent Elliott. It breaks my heart to not be able to support this project at this time. But I do want to say that I'm here as a resident, not as a school committee member. Thank you.
Gentleman in the front.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Paul Melorani, 176 Middlesex Avenue, also a permanent building committee member. Look at where we are. I mean, not this physical space, but this place in time. We're exactly where we're supposed to be. I hear a lot of misinformation around town and on social media. Mostly, we don't have a plan or we waste money. But let's talk about plans and money right now. Municipal planning, for the most part, didn't really start in Wilmington until the late 50s. 1966 town meeting ordered the first comprehensive master plan. It got off the ground in 1968 when planning consultant Charles Elliott was hired to write what would become known as the 1970 Elliott Plan. 2 years in the making, okay, but in 1970 on page 275, I quote, "A new administrative center, concentration of administrative and business activities on the town, and school department on the Center Swain Bazell site." This is the plan. May 31st, 1970, it's born, creating a municipal town center with the town hall and the school department. In 1970, half of the town's 11 schools are less than 9 years old. 4 of the oldest schools in town were set to be phased out. We were in pretty good shape in 1970. In the 90s, town meeting voted to build a new middle school. 1997, we ordered an update to the Elliott Plan. The middle school opened in 2000. Planners' Collaborative Master Plan was unveiled in 2001. It set the course for a new public safety building in 2003 and a new high school in 2015. The 2001 plan began the discussion of updating the elementary schools, which was handled every year by town meeting and by the town's very capable public building department. But the highest priority in 2001 in this plan, municipal buildings and municipal town center. just like Burlington has, just like Reading has, just like North Reading has, Tewksbury, Billerica, they all have a municipal town center, something that we've never had in Wilmington. Page 5 of the 2001 master plan, I quote, "The town common area will be the focus of the community's municipal and public life." Page 10, under town character, "Consider relocating other municipal uses, including the town hall, to the town common." This is 21 years ago. This is the plan. In page 197, if the town hall is relocated, it should be centrally located and accessible. Page 184, it talks about the senior center, and 4 things stand out about the senior center in this plan 21 years ago. Constraints of the site, hopes to expand in order to provide multiple programs, and projected increase in the proportion of seniors in Wilmington's population, along with demands for more services at the senior center, will continue to increase. The plan is pretty much the Elliott plan from 1970 on steroids, okay? After the high school opened in 2015, the town ordered a facility master plan. In 2018, the Harriman plan was completed, and it laid out a roadmap, a sequenced building schedule for the town of Wilmington, for the town to follow. On page 114, highest priorities in the project, priorities, we're talking priorities today, the highest priorities in the project in the sequence scheduled for 2022. New senior center at one of 3 sites, including the St. Dorothy's site, and a new town hall and school administration building at the Swain School site. This is the plan. Next in sequencing, 2025, the North, the West, the Shawshene, and the Woburn Street schools. We managed to slip in the Wildwood School. We're already running with the schools. We're already engaged with the schools. This is the plan. But here's a crucial takeaway from the Harriman report. Senior Center, in 2017 dollars, $6.7 million. 5 years later, right now, $17.2 million. Triple the price. Town Hall School Admin Building, in 2017 dollars, $19.3 million. Right now, $36.9 million, almost double the price. We can't afford to wait. The price of waiting is too high. And now, after 2 years of site selection, design, and spending 60 nights of my life with the rest of these people, hammering out these plans, crossing the T's and dotting the I's, we've got the best plan, the most affordable plan. And make no mistake, okay, I'm a taxpayer first, and I'm here to say that this is a good deal. Dr. Brand, I hope you have no plans for retirement, because we're going to need your leadership and your strategery to carry us through the next part of this plan, which is the schools. In closing, it's all right here in these reports. The tireless work of these committees, it's not on Facebook. These are the facts. We have a plan, and these are the priorities. This is not a time to change course. This is an opportunity that very rarely presents itself to a municipality. This is a time to stay the course, to execute the plan that was born 50 years ago. We can do this right now, and it doesn't have to be contentious or costly. We can work together. We can support each other. We can be reasonable, and we can build both of these projects to everyone's benefit. Wilmington will celebrate its 300th birthday in a couple of years, and we've never built a town hall. And we've never built a school administration building. And we've never built a senior center. Here and now, because of the remarkable fiscal management of this town, we can do all of this within the budget, within the levy, without an override, without a debt exclusion, and without taxes going up. Schools are next. We're right where we're supposed to be. If there was ever a no-brainer, this is it, people.
Thank you. I wanted to acknowledge the presence of our state representative, Dave Robertson, in the back. We're going to Ms. Galezo next, and Mr. De Palma, you're on deck. You're Mr. De Palma, you're on. Ms. Galezo, then you.
You're on cue.
Everyone's being far too polite here. Mr. De Palma, then Ms. Galezo.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I sit back and I look and I listen. And I hear people saying, why do we need a town hall school administration building? And I understand the conditions of both those buildings. They're bad, no doubt about it. But I prefer to take that money right now and invest it into our schools. We need it. The schools are our future. We should be looking at the schools. And then we have another issue. We have an issue of a fire substation. That's a life issue. If we can get a truck to a scene a minute earlier than before, it could save a life. Could save a building. We need it. These aren't luxuries. These are concerns that we should all have, and we should all be looking at. Let's get our schools squared away. Let's get a fire substation up in North Wilmington, and then let's sit down and look at what else we have. We need a town hall. We need a school administration building. I also hear we're going to need a DPW bond. These are things that we can do, but I believe our priorities are a little mixed up. The senior center, I couldn't be more happy. And I think everyone in town, whether you're a senior or not, is happy that we're finally saying thank you to the seniors. As far as the town hall and school administration building, I ask that you not support it at this time, that we look at our schools and we look at our substation, and then come back and review the town hall school administration building. Thank you.
Ms. Galezo.
Marianne Galezo, 30 Roosevelt Road. I want to say that we've been talking about a substation for the past 25 plus years. There is no land currently available to build a substation. As soon as land comes available, I am sure the town administration will turn around and try to purchase it for a substation. But to vote down the project for the prospect of a substation with no land is foolish at this point. The other point is, we have a school admin building that has file cabinets in the bathrooms. I, for one, as a taxpayer, are ashamed, absolutely ashamed of our school admin working in those conditions. As a taxpayer, I would like, we keep kicking the can down the road, and that's been said numerous times. You're kicking the can down the road if you do not vote for this. It will cost multi-millions of dollars to bring up these old buildings up to code. And to vote it down, to say that we need to do the schools first, there is no way that you can put money into the future of the schools without first addressing these buildings. There's no way. The schools are in the MSBA grant process. We need to follow that. We will have money for the schools. But to vote down this project is not going to put your money directly into the schools. That's not the way municipal government works. Thank you.
Ms. Russo.
Thank you. Oh. I'm Deborah Russo, 902 Lord's Court in Wilmington, and I'm a senior on a fixed income. And I'm going to do something that I really didn't think I was going to do, and that's stand in support of the new Town Hall School Administration Building. Before I go any further, I just want to say that I must have missed the memo that said that if you don't vote for this, we'll vote for the town, for the senior center. Nobody ever said that to me. The seniors know. You guys know. There doesn't need to be a, us versus them. There really doesn't. I want to say that, unlike seniors, buildings outlive their usefulness. They really do. They're talking about cars and cans being kicked down the road and stuff like that. I just have a little example. My phone is a 4G phone, and I went and said, I'm having trouble with this phone. And they said, well, that's because it's 4G, not 5G, and you need to upgrade. And I'm like, well, why can't I just use this phone? And they said, because there's going to be applications that your phone won't be able to read, and there's going to be this, and your phone won't get it, and pretty soon your phone will be useless. Well, that's how technology works. It always gets better and better and more advanced. The buildings we have now, they don't work like that. I mean, you can see in here, they're having a hard, do we have a cable for this? Do we have a cable for that? We need new buildings. These buildings are old, and like I said, they've outlived their usefulness. Nobody is as passionate about this as they are about the senior center. There's real heart behind the senior center, but this is a must. Several years ago, I think it was maybe 5 years ago, I went to a meeting, and it turns out that the state publishes a list of towns with their cash reserves. And in the whole 342 cities and towns of Wilmington, of Massachusetts, of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Wilmington was number 5 in terms of the amount of reserves. And now, I looked pretty recently, and Wilmington is number 5. So that tells me that as I'm a senior and look to save money, so does the town. They don't spend money frivolously. And the fact that the town manager says that the money to pay for this is going to come out of the town's budget, its operating budget, the same way I pay my mortgage out of my budget, says to me that we have a pretty good financial management team up there. So let's trust them.
If you're going to go to the woman in the back left who's been patiently waiting.
Me?
Yes.
Yeah. Susan Stewart, 169 Shawsheen. I know about the schools. I've got a relative who is a teacher here in Wilmington. Been hearing about the schools. However, if we do not have a good administration, it doesn't matter how good the schools are, they're all going to fall over. If there isn't a support organization, the kids, bless their hearts, the kids can't run them. It would be interesting. We need the people who do the background work, and they can't work in a building from 1897 when probably mimeograph machines were considered the actions of the future. They need a building which is wired properly, heated properly, and by the way, remember also that if we get a new building, it's going to be much more efficient as far as heating. You're going to save money. As opposed to trying to keep up a building from 1897 where they have to prop open the doors because part of it is too hot and part of it is too cold. Second of all, everybody's worried, oh my God, we spent almost $1 million just to do this plan. Well, if we're going to spend multi-million dollars, I do not want to come to a meeting and see a drawing on a cocktail napkin. We do need to have a reasonable, drawn-up plan. We need to understand what we need, what we don't need, what we need to pay for, what we don't need to pay for, so that we can make an informed decision. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to go to Ms. Shukas next, and then the gentleman in front in the red.
Joanne Shukas, 7 Cedar Street. When do we stop? I mean, really. We went into the Glen Road School. I was at the meeting at the old original town hall, and we decided to go into the Glen Road School temporarily. We're going to come up with a better plan, a site, the money, and you people are going to get a nice town hall. Really? Where is it? I haven't seen it. Glen Road School has been so overpowered. They can't even keep all of their records in the same building. You can't repair it. It's too old. We have a good plan. Stop arguing about it. It's not going to change your tax dollar. Really. The school system, I had kids, grandkids, and now I have great-grandchildren, and I have never been disappointed in the Wilmington school system and their education. So please, don't vote with your pocketbook, because your pocketbook isn't involved. Vote what you're supposed to do.
We're going to go front left, and then Mr. Sorrentino.
Good morning, Brian Kane, 17 Lucaya Circle. You know, I've watched all these meetings. I don't get my news from Facebook. I appreciate both sides, you know, especially the work Mr. Hooper's done and the volunteers that have been on this committee. You know, I honestly see both sides, and as of right now at 5 minutes of 11, I'm not sure how I'm going to vote. I might be the only one in here saying that. But my question is, and one thing I haven't heard today is, you know, I consider myself a fiscal conservative, and the question is, can we afford it? You know, we're in a time where, you know, a looming recession, 40-year high inflation. But my question for you, Mr. Moderator, to the town manager, when the initial numbers came out of how much free cash and cap stabilization fund money was going to be used, I think your numbers were a lot lower. And then, you know, I appreciated that, and I think you got a lot of pushback initially. And because of that, I think the numbers had to change. But I want my first question, and if I could have some time after the answer, since those numbers changed, and that was a few months ago, do you feel we can afford this? You know, I don't buy the argument, well, your tax dollars aren't going to go up because the savings go down. That number we just heard a few minutes ago of Wilmington's number 5, that's obviously going to change. These are both beautiful buildings, you know, but can we afford them? And that's my only issue, and that's where I'm struggling with. Also, I'd like to give, you know, Mr. De Palma some credit. It's not easy being a lone vote and having a lone opinion on a board like you're on, especially how you were treated. So I give you a lot of credit.
All right, so Mr. Kane, your question to the town manager is whether or not the current funding allocation is affordable?
Correct, based on his initial numbers of, you know, how much money would come out of those two funds.
Okay, Mr. Hull.
The short answer is...
Why don't we wait until the microphone checks on?
Is it on?
Yes.
The short answer is yes. I believe the town can afford this. One of the things that both my predecessor and I have been very judicious about doing is trying to develop these reserves. And I know that creates a lot of frustration amongst many people, the premise that people are being overtaxed. But the fact of the matter is, you know, you talk about a plan or a vision. My expectation, my knowledge is that we have a lot of buildings that are going to need to be addressed. So by developing these reserves, as we've done, this is an opportunity to deal with those buildings without having the financial impact on the taxpayers that not having the reserve would create. So yes, my initial thought was to be more conservative in terms of the amount of free cash and capital stabilization that we used, but I'm very comfortable with the numbers that are on the table, the $12 million for the town school admin. Our rating agency, Standard & Poor's, looks to us to maintain our commitment to keep 15% of our operating budget as reserves. So even with using that $12 million for this project, we'll still be in that space. So, you know, this is, with the consternation that people have had about all these reserves, well, now is the opportunity to take advantage of the fiscal discipline that I and others, the school superintendent and all the department heads, have created.
Thank you. Next question, Mr. Kane.
I think I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, so Mr. Sorrentino and Mr. Hull indicated, actually, I'm sorry, Ms. O'Connell had a point of personal privilege.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm speaking as a resident and also a member of the board. The last speaker did not mention anyone at this table by name, but did reference Selectman Gary DePalmer and giving him credit for being the lone vote that's against this project out of the 5 of us, and said how he was treated. I would just like to clarify for the record that I am not aware of any instance with myself or any other fellow board member that has had any sort of negative or derogatory conversation with Mr. DePalmer about choosing to vote differently than other members of the board. I think that's an important note. We all volunteer our time. I'm not going to sit here and tell you how many years I've served, what I've been a part of, where I went to school, about my family and what I've contributed to this town. But I take my integrity and my character and my reputation in this town very seriously, and I don't want anyone to have the misconception that people are treated poorly as to how they are voting and if they vote in a different position. We can all be human, we can all be professionals, and we can all agree to disagree on things and still work with civility and decorum and get the town's business done. It's often when statements are made on social media or in certain meetings that I wonder why people don't want to run for public office. There's no glory in sitting up here, there's no paycheck in my bank account, and I'm away from my family for a major event today to be here. So I just take exception to that, and I'm taking this point of personal privilege to clarify the record on behalf of this board that spends many, many hours on behalf of this town. I came back into this position with no plans because, quite frankly, it was vacated suddenly and no one else wanted to step forward and run for it. And I scratch my head sometimes. But when I see the assembly and all of us coming here together, town employees, everyone in the town, talking about our seniors, talking about our kids, I still believe from the time I was born in this town in 1973 that this is a wonderful place to be and I would be nowhere else but here. So let's all work together, get something positive done for the town, and stop just criticizing, condemning, and complaining about people and how they treat people. Let's take an example from a Linda Peters or a Joanne Benton and say, work hard, play hard, and treat people with kindness. Thank you.
Hold on, just Mr. DePalma, were you indicating a point of personal privilege?
As far as this project's concerned, I haven't been attacked. I voiced my opinion, and grant you, I am the sole board member that is against the town hall. But I want everyone to understand that we do, as a board of different people, different opinions. We have a very good I believe this working relationship with this board right now, since I've been on the board, is the most comfortable. We can voice our opinions, and we don't get attacked. But as far as this project is concerned, I want everyone to know that I have not been attacked on this one. And when I am attacked, it's because I say something wrong, maybe. But I want you to know that I have honor being with this group. Thank you.
Back to Mr. Kane.
I just want to clarify my comment. My comment was not about this vote.
Okay, we're not going to get into a
So it wasn't about
conversation
this,
of-
and
yeah.
that's my comment.
Okay, thank you. So we are going next to Mr. Sorrentino, who's been very patient in line.
Resident Mike Sorrentino on Curtis Street. Thank you, Mr.
How's it feel,
Moderator.
how's it feel?
It's pretty good. I must say, you look pretty dapper today, Mr. Moderator.
It's one day a year.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good.
That's my
Some of
third,
my
actually.
thunder's been stolen here by a bunch of people. What I really wanted to say is it doesn't need to be us against them. Be respectful here. People who work in the Roman house, I mean, do you really want them working in that Roman house? You should be embarrassed by that Roman house. The town hall, be respectful to the people that work there. They need a good place to work. There is no privacy in there. As someone who's attended a meeting or two in that town hall, there's nothing like coming in from a rainy day and having all these wires running across your feet while you're trying to have a meeting. You can't have a discussion, you can't spread out any plans, you can't really do too much. The town hall is long overdue to be something new. And there's nothing worse than trying to coach a football team and everybody yapping about parking because there's a town meeting at that night. Be respectful. Just be respectful to the people of what they have to do. A lot of process went into this. This is very good. Some nice plans here. There needs to be a little tweak in there. Didn't quite understand about whether or not we're going to be knocking down these buildings once we're done. It's going to have to be a little construction sequence. I would like to see some of that, but I think it's a good plan to be some nice buildings, the buildings that we can be proud of, and it's not going to take away from the school. We can all do this together. We should be a community and be united. The same people come and speak, and they go against town government every time. They say the same thing. They crush these things. They seem to think that they represent a certain group of people, but when they run for office, they always lose. I always wonder about that. So vote your conscience, but please be respectful. Thank you.
Mr. Hall, you had indicated a willingness or a desire to speak. Any new or informative information, or have you covered it previously?
I would just note the importance of the fact that if this project is approved, it will not impact your taxes. Now, I want to be clear that that is a distinction between, will anybody's taxes go up from one year to another? I can't predict that. Obviously, taxes are based upon the value of property, but what I can unequivocally say is that a vote for this project, because we're using reserve money and we're borrowing and we're paying for that within the budget, this project, if approved, will not impact your taxes.
All right, Ms. West.
Is this working?
Yep.
It is now.
Confirmed.
Karen West, 2 Birchwood Road. I'd like to make a motion to end discussion and move the question.
I wonder how this one's going to go. All right, so Ms. West has made a motion to move the question. A motion, it has been seconded. Thank you. Chief Kavanaugh is now the second most popular person in the room. So, a motion to move the previous question is a motion to end debate. It does, if it does pass, discussion on Article 3 will then come to an end, but the maker of the main motion, which was Ms. O'Connell, would have up to 10 minutes to address the Assembly if she so chooses. So I'm going to try to coordinate with our deputy moderator in the gymnasium just to make sure that they are ready. A motion to move the previous question does require a quantum of 2/3. However, we can try a voice vote, so if the affirmatives are clearly more than 2/3, then we don't need to go to a standing vote. So let me just confer with our deputy moderator via walkie-talkie. Ms. Osgood, is the gymnasium ready for a voice vote on a motion to move the previous question? All right, so the gymnasium is ready. So if you are in favor of moving the previous question, please so indicate by saying aye. Aye. If you are opposed, say no. Ms. Osgood, what was the result of the vote in the gymnasium? Okay, Ms. Osgood has reported that the vote in the gymnasium was unanimous. There were a few nays here, but it did pass by far more than a two-thirds majority. The motion has been, or the motion to move the previous question has passed. Ms. O'Connell, you have up to 10 minutes to address the Assembly, and then we will call for a vote on Article 3.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I just once again want to thank everyone for being here this morning. I do not want to belabor the point, as clearly everyone wants to move the question. I would just say that there's been some impactful statements made on both sides of this warrant article. I think you have to make a very personal decision for you and for your family what you feel works best for you. The fact that you're participating in this voting process to begin with is a credit to you and your family that you showed up here today. I, for one, am supporting this project. I hope that as many people will join me in that effort. But regardless, I still believe in the vision, in the beauty of the town of Wilmington. I do think this is what's best. And I think that we should all remain friends and neighbors and all be ambassadors for the town regardless of how this goes. But I do believe that this is important to take action now, and I hope you will join me. Thank you.
All right, so the vote on Article 3 will require a two-thirds majority, so we are going to do this by standing vote. So I ask, if you are a registered voter and you are intending to vote on Article 3, that you please find your way to a seat so that the tellers may count you. Mary, could you just let me know when the gymnasium is ready for a standing vote on Article 3? We're ready. As a few people are making their way to a seat, I would ask that you take out your orange voter card so they can be displayed when you are ultimately voting. All right, so if you are in favor of Article 3, which is for the sum of $36,880,766 for the construction of a town hall school administration building with $12 million coming from free cash and $24,880,766 coming from a borrowing, please so indicate by rising to your seat and displaying your orange voter card. All right, folks, you may be seated as our tellers bring their slips up.
Raise up, stand up again. That's why I wanted to make sure. This one's up there. Kira's over there too.
Is she responsible for the finance committee as well? Is she responsible for the other side?
The other side is
Okay.
the finance committee. Maggie, can you make sure that Cindy can the finance committee as well? Did Kara say if there were 13 and 12 towers in the gym?
Do you need a minute to get someplace else? Or do you need a minute? Are you just staying right here? Or? Okay. All right. So I believe that the tellers are stationed where they need to be. So if you are opposed of Article 3, please so signify by rising at your seat and displaying your orange voter card. romantic place there. The high school auditorium.
Checking, but I don't have her number. Yes. I think she's in jail. Either way, we have two votes. I don't need to do that.
Is that the final?
This is the final yes, that's the final no. I don't have any. I got it. Thanks, Megan. Yeah. 426 in favor.
You gotta get out of that. So.
426 in favor, 130 negative.
Ladies and gentlemen, on Article 3, there are 426 in favor, 130. The measure passes. We are on to Article 2. Article 2, to see if the town will vote to appropriate the sum of $17,264,561, more or less, to be expended under the direction of the town manager in consultation with the Senior Center Building Committee for the purpose of constructing, originally equipping, and furnishing a new senior center, including site preparation and design costs, and all costs incidental and related thereto, with funding for said appropriation anticipated as follows. Raised by taxation, nil. Transfer from free cash, nil. Transfer from stabilization, $6 million. Borrow, $11,246,561. Other, nil, or take any other action related thereto. Ms. Maselli.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I move that the town vote to appropriate the sum of $17,264,561 to be expended under the direction of the town manager in consultation with the Senior Center Building Committee for the purpose of constructing, originally equipping, and furnishing a new senior center, including site preparation and design costs and all costs incidental and relative thereto. To meet this appropriation, the sum of $6 million be transferred from capital stabilization account, and that the treasurer, with the approval of the Board of Selectmen, be authorized to borrow the balance of $11,264,561 under MGL Chapter 44 or any other enabling authority, and further to authorize the town manager to execute all contracts and agreements and take all related actions necessary or appropriate to carry out the purpose of this article.
Ms. Maselli, I'll accept that as a main motion. Is there a second? Motion has been made and seconded. Finance Committee recommends approval of Article 2. Before we jump into discussion, I do want to point out, if you're looking at your warrant, there is a Scrivener's error. In the actual text of Article 2 itself, the numbers are $17,264,561. The chart that's just beneath that adds up to $6 million from stabilization and $11,246,000 instead of $264,561. Ms. Maselli's motion reads to have $6 million from capital stabilization and to borrow $11,264,561, so that the math in the chart adds up to the text in the paragraph. I was told there would be no math. So, discussion on Article 2. Mr. McDonald.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Mr. Moderator, through you, I have some questions for the town manager, and I'd like to reserve the balance of my time. Is that possible?
Yes, I mean, depending on how much time you're going to take, but what are your questions?
Mr. Hull, regarding free cash, maybe you can just answer true or false to these questions so we can respect people's time.
Mr. McDonald, it's my job to frame the questions, so just ask them and I'll do the best that I can so that the information you're seeking gets out and the Assembly can consider it.
True or false, is free cash established because when an article goes to town meeting and it comes in under the budgeted amount, the extra amount goes into free cash? Is that true?
Mr. Hull, the question being posed is, how does free cash come about?
Free cash is a consequence of balancing the books at the end of the fiscal year. So the town has a budget of X number of dollars, in our case roughly $125 million. If the expenditures in a given fiscal year, in this example, don't total $125 million, if there's the actual expenditures come in less than that, then the difference goes into the general fund, and then the town accountant, finance director rather, and his staff go through a process of closing the books. That gets sent off to the Department of Revenue, and then the Department of Revenue establishes the free cash number.
And so we have about $40 million in free cash?
We have $39 million in change, that's correct.
Okay, so basically that was arrived because of various articles coming in under budget and, for lack of a better phrase, over budgeted, and that over budgeted amount is now free cash.
I think Mr. Hull had answered that question.
Okay. The other question, Mr. Hull, is it fair to say that the Lowell 5 Bank is the bank that holds the most funds?
Mr. McDonald, where the funds, or the town government's tax dollars, what bank we're using is well outside of the scope of this article.
Okay. Can Mr. Hooper pull up a slide? I believe it's page 40 on their presentation that's on the town website relative to the senior center, showing the square footage and the budgeted amount.
I want to thank our town's IT department for accommodating the request. being told that there is no slide 40.
Can you show us this? That's what I saw. It's try number 19. Or can somebody bring up a slide that shows the square footage of the building and the cost per square foot, please? Try page 19 then.
So we've got a team of folks looking for that right now.
I think you just passed it. Mr. Moderator? Mr. Moderator?
Mr. McDonald, I'm
okay.
Mr. Moderator, I have the floor, so I'm trying to provide an explanation. The figures that you're searching for on one of the slides, it may have been on a previous presentation, but it is not available in any of the presentations, I'm being told, that are on the town's website for the price per square foot.
Okay, I was wanting that to subordinate the truth of my information. So I guess out of respect for people's time, if you could just trust my numbers, because I did extensive research and I got the numbers here. Okay, the proposed senior center is 18,875 square feet. This is over 3,000 feet smaller than a detox center, which was recently built. I passed out flyers to people. I have the numbers of the construction cost for the detox center, which is larger.
Mr. McDonald, the last thing that this assembly wants is a discussion on the detox center.
It's just a cost comparison, sir. Can I do a cost comparison?
If you have some sort of reason or information to provide the assembly on what the cost per square foot would be,
yes,
that would be beneficial. But
the reason for my comments is a disturbing thing I was told, that because of the over-budgeted amounts and the amounts that go into the banks that hold the money, okay, and I was trying to explain that that money goes to build other projects. Banks that hold our money go to build other projects, and I was told that the senior center is over-budgeted, the town hall is over-budgeted, and that extra money is being put in the bank, and people well connected to the town are using that money to go buy the Olin property. Okay?
All right.
Now,
Mr. McDonald,
whether you like it or not, it's what I heard.
Mr. McDonald, you're out of order. We're not just going to start listing the most controversial issues that the town has. We have a very narrow scope.
Last question, just for Mr. Hooper.
Mr. McDonald, I'm speaking. Mr. Hooper, do you have any comment or perhaps any of the professionals with you on how the cost was come to on the senior center?
I do have professionals with me.
You want the mic?
No, I'm good. Thank you. Thank you for your time. I can let our OPM, they've been waiting to speak, so, Mr. Boss, please.
Want to share?
Dan, pull out our project there.
Mr. Moderator, what exactly do you want me to answer?
If you could describe the process by which that your group came to in the cost estimation for the senior center.
Sure. Fortunately, we have up on the board here is a detailed budget for the senior center. The senior center budget is what's called a schematic design budget. It is a common way of estimating a building at the schematic design phase. Within the budget are everything that is needed for the senior center, from furniture to the actual cost of building the building. In this particular budget, the cost of the building is $14 million and some change. And then there's the cost of the management, the cost of the designer, the cost of furniture, the cost of testing, and the cost of commissioning,
There's a lot of parts and pieces to the budget, which brings us to the 17 million and change that is before you this evening, this afternoon.
Mr. Moderator?
Mr. McDonald, Mr. Pilata has the floor, and he's
I
describing...
thought he was finished, I'm sorry.
So this here is the actual estimate. It is quite extensive. It goes through every square yard of concrete, every piece of lumber, every window, every door. The numbers aren't made out of thin air. They're based on data for the recent projects in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. The projects are done by prevailing wage, and they're done through the Massachusetts construction bidding laws, which is different than private industry. So the cost per foot for the project would be higher.
Thank you, Mr. Pilata. Final question, Mr. McDonald.
If I could direct your attention to the right side of the screen, the cost per square foot, which would be in the third column, the very bottom one, beside the 14 million. It looks like it's $789.27, if I can see that right from here. 67, sorry. Okay, so when I divide $17,914,561 divided by the square footage, I come up with a cost per square foot of $914.67. The reason why I brought up the detox center is because the cost of that building, which is a medical facility, which has to comply with the institutional medical building codes, which are very extensive and very more expensive, the cost to build that building was $431 a square foot. So you're more than double that. And so I'm concerned that my prior comments could actually come to fruition. And I actually love our seniors. I could point out several people in this auditorium today who've been a blessing to me and helped me in my life. There's nothing that I want more than a senior center. I just happen to think it's misguided and that there's a better vision, and there's nothing being accomplished for affordable senior housing. That building is one story, and it could certainly have more than one story and incorporate senior housing where we can receive federal and state funds to address some of our senior housing need, and also incorporate a senior center in with that senior housing project, which is the reason why I'm opposed to this, because of the lack of vision and the misguided approach and the over-budgeting amount and the disturbing things that I heard as to what's going to be done with the extra money that's over-budgeted. And so I'm not here today to insult anybody, hurt anybody, but I see and hear seniors having to move out of town and seniors struggling. And so I'm opposed to this for those reasons, and I'm not going to take any more time. I'm going to be respectful to you.
The woman in the front.
Erin DiCarlo, 9 Fenway Street. I am a certified dementia practitioner, certified care manager, and owner of a local business that supports our seniors. I spend many of my days throughout Massachusetts and southern New Hampshire visiting many local senior centers. And to say that our current senior center is deplorable in condition is an understatement. They say you can judge a society based on how they treat their elders. And here in our small town, in our state, and in our country, we're not doing a very good job. Ageism is rampant, and it's up to all of us to stand up and advocate for our seniors. As was stated today, and warms my heart to feel the positive energy today about our support of our seniors. We have to do a better job. I will say I'm a little disheartened by my younger peers in town who have not stood behind me in full support of this new senior center. God willing, we too all day will be over the age of 62 living here in this beautiful town, and will need to access services. But a lot of people also don't realize the senior center is more than a place to go and play cards. Although social engagement is equally important for seniors' health and well-being, but for adult children caregivers, for our opportunity for intergenerational programming for our children in town. It's imperative that we do better and stand together. The Buzzell Senior Center's motto is better together. This isn't us or them. The schools are a completely separate issue. I have 4 young children here in town attending 4 of our wonderful schools, and yes, that will be addressed. It's important, but I'm excited and hopefully we'll see a close to unanimous vote standing behind in support of our elders in town. All of the things we enjoy with our children in this town, such as our parks, our schools, our baseball fields, that's all been paid for and supported by our seniors. It's time to do the right thing and stand behind them.
Ms. Shukas?
Joanne Shukas, 7 Cedar Street. You really know what the seniors in this town do for you. We built this town. We were here when you weren't even born. Your schools are because we voted them in. Everything that you see in municipal buildings or whatever, we've been here. We haven't seen a lot of the young people, but the seniors are always here. If you need anything, if you're disabled, like me, go to the senior citizen. They'll give it to you. When you no longer need it, you return it. The Freemasons, they put ramps into, and every one of them is a senior citizen, retired businessman, and they put in ramps for the seniors of this town so they can get in and out of their homes. Now, really. I think it's time that the town does something for the seniors. We've done enough.
We'll go to the gentleman in the red, the woman in the striped sweater, and then Ms. Russo.
Good morning, thank you. Jack Grady, 24 Sheridan Road, right here in town. A 48-year resident and taxpayer of the town, and happy to have done so. I have been a senior leader in the business that I'm involved with for over 30 years. And decision-making to have a successful business and a successful operation of a town is based on the facts, not opinions. And I implore all the good folks here today to think about the facts that you've heard and segregate them from the opinions. Thank you very much.
The woman in back.
My name is Suzanne Krull, 21 Blueberry Lane, and I'd like to make a motion to vote.
So I'm going to interpret that as a motion to move the previous question. We've been through this before, so I will save the lengthy explanation. It has been seconded, so let me just confer with my deputy moderator in the gymnasium. Mrs. Osgood, is the gymnasium ready for a voice vote on a motion to move the previous question? All right, on the motion to move the previous question, the gymnasium is ready. We will try this by a voice vote. Again, it is a 2/3 majority. If you are in favor of moving the previous question, which ends debate and does give the maker of the main motion, Ms. Maselli, up to 10 minutes to address the assembly if she so chooses. Please so indicate by saying aye. Aye. If you are opposed, say no. Mrs. Osgood, how would you characterize the vote in the gymnasium? The motion to move the previous question passed unanimously both here and in the gymnasium. So, Ms. Maselli, you have up to 10 minutes to address the assembly if you would like. You do not need to.
Nope, I just want to say I'm proud of this town today.
All right, I would ask that the tellers take their places. This does require a 2/3 majority, so we are going to need to do a standing vote. Mary, if you could just let me know when the gymnasium is ready with the tellers in their positions. I'm going to interpret that as a point of information. I'm going to have to do it by a, we're going to do a standing vote. So sorry, we'll get you out of here by lunchtime, maybe. If you are in favor of Article 2 passing, that is to build a senior center with $6 million from capital stabilization and $11,264,561 coming from borrowing, so indicate by rising in your seats.
I don't think you have to count if no one votes against. She needs to count it if no one stands up for the negative. She asked if they have to count if no one stands up for the negative.
Oh, yeah.
Just, you're passing the zero papers, right? Maggie, because you did a standing vote, we're going to need the zero papers for the record. My guess was noontime, and I think I'm going to be pretty close. That was my guess this morning. We were going to finish up at noon.
I think that's what she's
No, I have extra, and then it set up extra formulas, so just in case.
I see. So, I mean, but it's 77%. You can get a majority, so that's what you consider it. You just need to get it below two-thirds. It's a majority vote to consider. Not that he's going to have it, but. See. If you are opposed to Article 2 passing, please rise in your seats and display your orange voter card.
Diana? Megan. Megan. Is this 45? Want to check with Diana or no? Okay. You can keep collecting and then just confirm. Is that all the yeses? Yes. Let me just make sure that we're only missing Pepper because she didn't show up. Yep, we're only missing Pepper. Okay. Let's go on to the nose.
Right, clear mark is 0.
Zero, okay.
Linda Sudo, 0.
Okay.
Diana Wilson, 0. Christina County, 0. Cindy Hugh, 0. 0. Cindy Disability, 0.
Zero. I see a theme.
Jody Heffernan, 0.
Heffernan, 0.
Annette Shelley, 1.
Shelley, 1.
Beverly Dalton, 0. Michael Robichard, 0. Elizabeth Millard, 1. Pat, 0. Eileen McDougal, 0. Laura Salton, 0. Dudley, 0. Constance Carter, 0. Judy Danker, 0. Ryan McDougal, 0. Christine Gilbert, 0. Kim Jones, 0. Judy Perry, 0. Michelle Getchell, 0. Judy Manos, 0. Terry Rossani, 0.
Please go to Pappas.
Only you have them missing again. I think she's in here. Just don't know. Pretty sure she's in here. Yeah, she's right there. She's right there. In the yellow sweater on the end. Probably just stepped away.
She kept her slip. That's right.
So we're not, it's not us. Okay. 0? So we have
You gotta,
502 to 2.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, on the vote on Article 2, the vote is 502 in the affirmative, 2 in the negative. The motion passes. Oh, Mr. Doherty? Mr. Doherty has made a motion that has been seconded. All those in favor of adjourning, say aye. Opposed, say no. Voted.